Now for chapter 12, Mrs. Staines. Now, Anna had like this little break because George was focusing on the presidency. So this was going to be her first Christmas not being enslaved. Anna started to realize that as a free black woman, she kind of was in danger, so she needed to go find herself a man. And she committed one of the most freeing acts of an enslaved African. She found love and got married. So she met Jack Staines, who worked as a seaman. Now, it was a very dangerous job, but it was work and it paid. He faced discrimination from his white shipmates, but he was viewed as a honorable man amongst the black community. Because part of the job was extremely dangerous, he faced unlawful enslavement, and sometimes free black people were imprisoned. And a part of that era was the Denmark-Vesey Rebellion of 1822 in South Carolina. A really good story that you should really look into. So Jack would be gone for weeks at a time, and while he was gone, she was left alone to face her slave catchers. Now, Whipple learned that Ona and Jack were trying to get married, and so he told the courthouse to not certify her marriage, because as an enslaved person getting as a free black person, she now had access to land ownership and wage ownership from her husband, which could become a problem for George. So because of Whipple's interference, they didn't get legally married in Portsmouth. They ended up getting legally married in Greenland, which is a small city right outside of Portsmouth. And their marriage was put in the Gazette, the New Hampshire Gazette. Ona took Jack's last name, and on the census, it was marked that they had 2 additional people living in their home, which were roommates and also contributed to their household. This was interesting because Ona was not listed as a slave. Now, Ona began to experience just a little bit of joy in her life. She and Jack ended up having their first kid by the name of Eliza. And Eliza was born free. It's something that Ona really was proud of. Unfortunately, it didn't bring down her precautions about the fact that she could possibly still be captured. George and Martha's granddaughter, Elizabeth Custis Law, ended up having a baby by the name of Eliza on January 19th of 1797. And within 2 years, George had become a private citizen, and he picked up his slave catching ways one more again. This time he enlisted his nephew, Burwell Bassett Jr. Now, Bassett took up lodgings with the Langdons. Remember them? They were responsible for snitching on Ona. Now, at this point, Langdon started shifting his political beliefs a little bit. He went from being a Federalist to a Democratic Republican. He started making suggestions that the transatlantic slave trade should be abolished. He emancipated his former slaves and then rehired them with paid wages. But you could not call him an abolitionist because he was still with George trying to capture Ona. So Ona was 25 years old at this point, and Eliza was 1 year old when she opened the door and saw Bassett standing right in front of her. Jack was away at sea, and Ona was scared. But then her fear subsided when Bassett tried to convince Ona that she should come back and be a slave. And Ona hit him with the Miss Sophia, hell no. I am free now and choose to remain so. However, according to the federal law, she was still a fugitive. At this point, Ona was free 3 years. And Bassett was like, how am I supposed to enslave somebody who been free for 3 years? He realized that gentle convincing wasn't gonna do it. So he was like, well, she about to get snatched up. So he rallied the troops, his little homies, and they showed up at her door, and Ona was gone. She ended up linking up with this black family in Greenland called the Jacks. Bassett went back to Martha and George and told them that Ona was married with a baby and a husband and a house. And George and Martha was pissed, but they were not deterred.